So let's talk about one of the alternatives that you typically run across in ICT, and that is whether to make or buy. Should you go to the cloud, or should you build out your own data center? Should you buy a customer service software, or should you develop the application yourself? These are the kinds of decisions that one often encounters, and there's a lot to go into thinking through whether or not you should in fact make or buy. Make versus buy provides some rather interesting questions. We'll go through the various considerations for make versus buy. If you make something, particularly software, yourself, you are better able to customize it. When in fact you buy it, you might have to buy something that is generic, something that is meant to support a wide range of options for various customers of that particular software, let's say. There might be some configuration that you might be able to do that makes it a little bit more customized to your particular situation, but when you buy something, you have to pretty much accept what your vendor is providing you, and you buy into not just the software, but into the underlying process and methodology that software assumes, which may or may not fit your particular needs. When you make something, you're familiar with it. You know what you're getting. When you buy something, you're buying some expertise that you may not have. Again, I'll use the customer service software example. You're buying from a company that is an expert in developing customer service applications. When you make something, you have total ownership. You have ownership of the code, you have ownership of the assets that you create. But you also own all the problems that are associated with that. One of the advantages of buying, however, might be speed. Speed to market, speed for implementation. So as you can see, the make versus buy decision is somewhat complex, and we'll walk through the various considerations to come up with which you'll need to consider in order to make an appropriate make versus buy decision. So make or buy. The first thing is competitive advantage. Does making or buying provide you a competitive advantage in the marketplace? By making something, are you able to leverage your distinctive competence? Are you able to do something better than anybody else can do and make it strategic? And by strategic, remember from our discussions before, is something that can't be imitated. If the make decision means that it gives you a competitive advantage, by all means. But if it doesn't, perhaps buying is the better option. The next thing is the total cost of ownership. Total cost of ownership means not just the cost of either the initial purchase or the initial labor and development effort that goes into making something. It also includes the maintenance and carrying cost of that particular option, the ongoing operating expenses of either making or buying. Buying may, in fact, require ongoing licensing fees. Making may require that you are now responsible for all future updates and upgrades and that sort of thing. So you have to think about the entire total cost of ownership. Back to making, if you may require that you might have to have a data center, where buying might mean that you don't have the capital costs of a data center. You can simply use a cloud-based solution, a platform as a service or infrastructure as a service or even software as a service option. And therefore, you're not actually purchasing an asset and all the costs that are associated with that. The other thing is the skill set. Do you have the skill set to actually pull off making a particular option, whether it's software or whether it's building out a data center or any number of things? Do you have the skill set in-house to pull that off? Whereas on the buy side, you are in fact, in many cases, buying the expertise of the vendor to provide you the solution that you're looking for. Time to market is a consideration. Which option, whether you make it or buy it, gives you the time to market advantages? It may not necessarily always be the buy option. If you make something yourself, it may in fact mean that you can go to market with something that is very specific that gives you the competitive advantage sooner than waiting around for some vendor to come up with a solution that you can then buy from them. Opportunity costs. Whether you make or buy means that it precludes the other. This is particularly important in the make decision. If you decide to make a customer service software, that means you're devoting resources to it, and that means you may not be able to do other things with those resources. But the same may be said for buying. If you buy something, that may, again, create the fact that you are now buying into your vendor's means of doing something. Well, what that means is you're having to adapt your process to the underlying methodology that you're getting from your vendor. All of these wrap up into opportunity costs that you need to consider. And then finally, control. Which option gives you the most control, even from a security perspective or from a management perspective? By making something certainly provides you with more control over what you get, and you certainly know what you have when you're done. Buying, though, may not necessarily mean you're ceding control. Buying may, in fact, give you the security expertise that you may not have in-house, and therefore it may actually give you additional control that you might not be able to develop yourself. As you can see through this discussion, all these 6 considerations tie into one another. And so what you have to do is consider these 6 in a holistic view of the make or buy decision. And ultimately, the analysis of making or buying is done just like we talked about before. You have to understand both the magnitude effects and the timing effects as it relates to your benefit and cost in order to make the right make or buy decision. Make or buy is not something that you should go into lightly, but it is something that you can, in fact, do in a very methodical way if you consider these 6 factors in terms of making that decision.